Los Angeles Dodgers fans woke up to a decision that immediately sparked debate, and it didn't take long for the reactions to start pouring in from every corner. Because when you look at what happened during spring training, it's impossible to ignore the contrast. On one side, you had a player producing, getting on base, showing speed, energy, and confidence. On the other, a player still trying to find his rhythm at the plate. And yet, when the roster decision came down, the Dodgers went in a direction that, at first glance, doesn't seem to match the numbers everyone was watching. That's where things start to get interesting, because if there's one thing this organization has made clear over the years, it's that they don't build decisions based purely on what shows up in the box score during spring training. For them, it's always been about the bigger picture. It's about projection, development, and understanding what a player can become over the course of a full major league season, not just what he looks like in a few weeks of exhibition games. And that mindset is exactly what's driving this move. When you break it down, the situation becomes less about who performed better in the moment and more about what the Dodgers are trying to learn. With a player like Ha-Seong Kim, there's already a strong sense of familiarity. The team knows his skill set, they understand what he brings defensively, they've seen how his speed can impact a game, and they have a pretty solid idea of what his offensive ceiling looks like at the major league level. There's a level of certainty there, even if it's not perfect. But with Alex Freeland, it's a completely different story. This is a player who, despite not putting up eye-popping numbers in spring training, represents something the Dodgers don't fully have answers to yet. And in a system like theirs, where development is just as important as winning in the present, that unknown can be incredibly valuable. Because the only way to truly find out what a player can do against top-level competition is to put him in that environment and let it play out over time. That's why this decision isn't as simple as comparing batting averages or looking at who had the hotter spring. It's about opportunity and evaluation. Freeland is being given a window, a chance to prove himself against major league pitching in real situations where the stakes are higher and the competition is sharper. And the Dodgers are willing to live with some growing pains if it means getting a clearer answer about his future role on this team. Meanwhile, Kim's situation becomes more about timing than anything else, because sending him down isn't necessarily a statement about his ability, but rather about how the roster is structured right now. At the major league level, consistent playing time would have been hard to come by, and for a player still refining his game, that matters more than people might realize. Daily reps, regular at-bats, and the chance to move around defensively without pressure can make a huge difference in long-term development. And that's something the Dodgers are clearly prioritizing here. Instead of keeping Kim in a limited role where he might only see sporadic action, they're putting him in a position where he can play every day, stay sharp, and continue building confidence. It's a strategic move, even if it doesn't sit well emotionally with fans who were expecting to see him on the opening day roster. At the same time, this opens the door for Freeland in a very specific way. He's not being asked to carry the team or suddenly become a star overnight. His role is much more controlled, much more situational. He'll likely get opportunities against certain matchups, particularly against right-handed pitching, and from there, it becomes very straightforward. If he produces, he stays. If he struggles, the Dodgers have options ready to go. And that's the luxury of having a deep roster. This isn't a team scraping for answers or hoping someone figures it out. This is a team that already has multiple layers of talent, which allows them to experiment, to test, and to make adjustments quickly if something doesn't work. It's a position most organizations would love to be in, even if it creates tough decisions like this one. Still, none of that stops the frustration from fans who are focused on what they just saw. Because from that perspective, it feels like a player who did everything right is being overlooked, while another who hasn't delivered the same results is getting the opportunity instead. And in a sport where performance is supposed to speak the loudest, that could be a hard pill to swallow. But inside the Dodgers organization, the evaluation process goes far beyond surface-level production. They're looking at approach, plate discipline, decision-making, adaptability, and how those traits project over a full season. It's not just about what happened. It's about what they believe will happen when the games truly count. And that's why this decision, as controversial as it may seem right now, fits into a much larger philosophy. a philosophy that has consistently kept the Dodgers among the most competitive teams in baseball year after year. They trust their system, they trust their evaluations, and most importantly, they trust that these kinds of moves will pay off over time, even if they don't make perfect sense in the moment. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about choosing one player over another permanently. It's about sequencing. It's about figuring out who fits where and when. And if there's one thing that seems almost certain in all of this, it's that this story is far from over, and the opportunity for change could come a lot sooner than people expect as the season begins to unfold and new challenges start to appear. And if you thought that explanation would calm things down, it actually had the opposite effect. The moment the decision became official, the reaction from the fan base exploded, and it wasn't a quiet disagreement. It was loud, emotional, and in many cases fueled by the feeling that something just didn't add up. Because from the outside looking in, it felt like a classic case of production being overlooked in favor of projection, and that's always going to create tension. Social media quickly turned into a battleground of opinions, with the overwhelming majority questioning how a player who clearly performed could be left off the roster. For many fans, it's simple. You produce, you earn your spot. That's the way they see the game, and honestly, it's hard to blame them. When someone is hitting, getting on base, making plays, and showing impact in real time, it creates an expectation. And when that expectation isn't met, frustration is inevitable. There's also an emotional layer to this that goes beyond numbers. Fans had started to connect with Kim's style of play. The speed, the energy, the way he could change a game the moment he reached base. Those are the kinds of players that people get excited about watching every single day. So when that gets taken away, even temporarily, it feels like the team is removing something entertaining, something that was working. At the same time, the criticism wasn't just about Kim being left out. It was also about what fans were seeing on the other side. Because when you look at Freeland Spring, it didn't exactly scream must-have bat in the lineup. The strikeouts, the struggles to consistently make solid contact, those are things that stand out immediately. And even though the walks and plate discipline are there, for a lot of people, that's not enough to justify the decision. But this is where the disconnect really shows itself. Because while fans are reacting to visible results, the Dodgers are leaning heavily into underlying indicators. They're looking at how those at-bats are unfolding, the decisions being made at the plate, the ability to recognize pitches, to stay patient, to work counts. These are the details that don't always show up in a highlight clip, but they matter a lot when projecting long-term success. And that difference in perspective is what's driving this entire conversation. It's the classic clash between what feels right in the moment and what's believed to be right over time. The Dodgers are betting on their evaluation process, trusting that giving Freeland this opportunity now will give them answers they can't get any other way. And if those answers aren't good enough, they're fully prepared to pivot. That's another key part of this situation that often gets overlooked. This isn't a permanent commitment. This isn't the Dodgers locking themselves into one direction with no flexibility. If Freeland struggles, if the production doesn't come, the adjustment can happen quickly. And when that moment comes, a player like Kim becomes incredibly valuable because he's already proven he can step in and contribute. There's also the reality of how long a baseball season really is. Over the course of those long months, injuries happen, slumps happen, unexpected needs arise. Depth becomes everything. And in that context, having players ready to step in at any moment is just as important as who starts on opening day. The Dodgers understand that better than most, and it's a big reason why they're comfortable making a move like this. Still, that doesn't make it easier for fans to accept in real time, because opening day carries weight. It's symbolic. It's the moment where all the anticipation of the offseason turns into reality. And being left off that roster, even if it's temporary, feels significant. It feels like a missed opportunity, like something that was earned didn't get rewarded. For Kim, there's no question this is a tough moment. Every player wants to be there when the season begins, to feel that energy, to be part of that first step. But at the same time, his story with this team is far from finished. If anything, this could end up being just a brief pause before a much bigger role later on. And for Freeland, The spotlight is now unavoidable. Every at-bat, every opportunity, it's going to be watched closely. Because whether it's fair or not, he's stepping into a situation where he has to justify the decision that put him there. The margin for error feels smaller, the expectations feel heavier, and the conversation around him is already intense before the season even fully gets underway. That's the reality of playing for a team like the Dodgers. The stakes are always high, the scrutiny is constant, and every move gets analyzed from every possible angle. But it's also what makes moments like this so compelling. Because now it's no longer just a debate. It's something that's going to unfold on the field, game by game, inning by inning, as the season starts to take shape and the answers everyone is looking for begin to reveal themselves in real time. As the first games of the season begin, the spotlight only grows brighter around this situation, because now it's no longer about projections or spring training debates. Now it's about performance under real pressure in games that actually count. And every single moment that Freeland steps onto the field, there's going to be that comparison lingering in the background. Fans will be watching closely, not just what he does, but what Kim might have done in that same situation. That creates a unique kind of tension, not just externally, but internally as well. Because players feel that pressure, even if they don't openly talk about it. Freeland knows this is an opportunity, but he also knows it comes with expectations that were amplified the moment that roster decision was made. Every at-bat becomes a chance to either quiet the noise or make it louder, and that's not an easy position for any player trying to establish himself at the highest level. At the same time, the Dodgers are sticking to what has worked for them over the years. This is an organization that has built its success on patience, on trusting their evaluations, and on not overreacting to short-term outcomes. They've seen situations like this before, where decisions didn't make sense in the moment, but ended up paying off over time. That track record gives them confidence to stay the course, even when the outside pressure is building. And while all of this is unfolding at the major league level, Kim's journey doesn't stop. In fact, in many ways, it becomes even more important, because now every game he plays, every at-bat he takes, is part of building his case to return. The focus shifts to consistency, to sharpening every aspect of his game, and to being ready the moment the opportunity opens up again, which in a long season can happen faster than anyone expects. There's also the possibility that this competition ends up benefiting both players. Because when you have two guys essentially fighting for the same role, it raises the level of urgency. It pushes them to be better, to stay locked in, to maximize every chance they get. And for the Dodgers, that kind of internal competition is exactly what they want, because it creates depth and keeps everyone accountable. So now, everything moves from speculation to reality. The debates, the arguments, the frustration, all of it starts to be tested against what actually happens on the field. And as these early games start to unfold, the question that has been driving this entire conversation doesn't go away. It only gets louder with each passing inning, as fans continue to watch closely, waiting to see if the decision the Dodgers made will hold up or if change is coming sooner than anyone imagined. But before we move forward, don't forget to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest news about the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the news, so drop a comment below. A quiet concern is beginning to ripple through the corridors surrounding the Los Angeles Dodgers, and it centers on one of their most intriguing young arms. What once looked like a rising force on the mound is now the subject of internal whispers, as a noticeable dip in velocity has sparked questions that few are ready to answer publicly. According to sources close to the situation, the right-hander, long praised for his explosive fastball, has seen his average velocity trend downward over recent outings. While fluctuations are not uncommon for developing pitchers, the consistency of the decline has reportedly caught the attention of evaluators within the organization. Some believe it could be a minor mechanical adjustment gone awry, while others fear it may hint at underlying fatigue or something more concerning. The Dodgers, known for their analytical depth and cautious handling of pitchers, have not issued any formal statement addressing the situation. However, observers have noted subtle changes, shorter outings, more frequent mound visits, and an apparent shift in pitch selection. The young pitcher, once overpowering hitters with ease, has leaned more heavily on off-speed offerings, perhaps an attempt to compensate for the missing velocity. Around the clubhouse, the tone remains measured. Teammates continue to express confidence, framing the issue as part of the natural evolution of a young career. Yet outside that circle, speculation is growing. Rival scouts are said to be monitoring closely, curious whether this is a temporary lull or an early sign of a more significant hurdle. For a franchise with championship aspirations, even the smallest uncertainties can feel magnified. And for a pitcher once viewed as a cornerstone of the future, the current narrative has shifted, if only slightly, from promise to question mark. Whether this proves to be a fleeting concern or the beginning of a more complicated chapter remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. The radar gun readings are no longer being taken for granted. That's all for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay up to date with exclusive news about the Los Angeles Dodgers, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We always appreciate your comments and feedback. See you in the next video.